Welcome into Pigskin Perspectives. It is time for a week one review of everything that happened in the college football world. I mean, we just had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 straight days of college football. It was quite enjoyable. We got the NFL starting on Thursday. We're going to save my whole NFL preview for Thursday's episode. It's going to work out better that way. Let's just get into it. There is one main talking point that a lot of people are talking about, but I don't think enough. But I feel like it's the biggest thing to come out of this weekend, and that is the Pac-12 being just perfect this weekend. They go 12-0 throughout week. I said week 0, meant week 1. They're 13-0, including week 0, because USC played week 0. Their next closest conference has 2 losses. So this is, yes, it's showing that the Pac-12 didn't play each other during week 1, which I don't think anybody expected them to. But I think we are going to be in for a very interesting swan song for the Pac-12, given that this is most likely their final season. I say that after critiquing every Pac-12 broadcast basically this weekend, just talking about how this is the end for the Pac-12, which yes, it is, but I feel like we shouldn't really be dwelling on that, yet I'm here right now talking about how this is the last season for the Pac-12, so I don't really know what my end goal is here, but I guess the point is you can't avoid that this is going to be the last season of the Pac-12, which is a shame mostly, especially given that Stanford and Cal are headed to the ACC, which is just absolutely dumb. I think that came out on Friday after Thursday's episode, so we didn't really mention that Stanford, Cal, and SMU are going to the ACC. SMU isn't getting any TV contract payouts for 9 years. That's basically why they got accepted, because they're going there for free. There's a chance the ACC doesn't exist before SMU starts getting money. So, the Stanford and Cal needed a home. I get that. SMU was they just want to be at the big boy table, and they did what they needed to do. And if that's not taking TV revenue for 9 years, I guess that's what it is. But back to the Pac-12 going 12-0, there were some really impressive performances this weekend. We're obviously going to get into them a little bit later, but of course the standout is Colorado. When I get into looking at the top 25, I'll give my full opinion on Colorado. Yes, it was a very impressive win, but I think there's more to it than that. Oregon State's win, absolute obliteration of San Jose State, I think says something, especially given that it was on the road. A team now, of course, there's the fatigue factor, because I was going to say, well, compared to what San Jose State did last week against USC, they put up a fight at least. I don't think that's really a comparable there, but some people will make it out that way. You had Oregon and Washington. Oregon especially just dismantling Portland State, which is an FCS team, but still. Now Washington's just absolutely obliteration of Boise State, a team that people are very high on this year, Boise State. I personally wasn't, but a lot of people are for some reason. I think that kind of shows why I might be right. From their performance on Saturday, they just couldn't stop Washington at all. I think Washington's going to cause some trouble to some of their other out-of-conference opponents this year. MSU. I'm really impressed by this Pac-12 weekend. I think it's going to be a very good year for the conference. I think it's going to be the best way for it to go out, if that makes any sense, because they have a lot of good talent in this conference this year. A lot of good talent that's probably gone next year anyways. So for it to end like this, I feel like is going to be a real high for this conference. So I just kind of want to move on from them, the Pac-12 specifically, and do some biggest winners and biggest losers of week one. Obviously, big winner, Pac-12. I mean, that's already been mentioned. Specifically, I'll say Colorado. That's a pretty big winner this weekend, given all that has happened this offseason. You know, all the Deion Sanders stuff that has gone on with him building this roster. He goes out and beats TCU in an absolutely outstanding game. You got to hand it to him. That's a big winner on the weekend. Another big winner on the weekend, Texas State, getting a huge road victory against a Power 5 opponent in Baylor, who I was a little bit high on this year, but obviously I might be proven wrong now. They go out and win at McLean Stadium. That's a huge win for their program. I mean, that was an outstanding game. Another big winner, Jalen Milroe. He looks like an outstanding quarterback. There were a lot of questions going into the season of, who's going to be Alabama's starting quarterback, why it should be, Tyler Buckner or, Jalen Milroe or any of the other quarterbacks that are on that roster. Jalen Milroe wins the starting job, goes out. Yes, it was against Middle Tennessee State, but just puts on an absolutely outstanding performance. It was 3 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. The last quarterback to do that in the SEC was Cam Newton, who went on to win the Heisman that year. Absolutely outstanding performance there by Jalen Milroe. Now let's get into some losers, because there are always losers. The first one that comes to mind, honestly, it's the Clemson. Clemson is a just huge loser. Lose 28-7 to Duke on Monday night on Labor Day at Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham. It wasn't even that close. If Duke didn't muff that punt, Clemson gets shut out in this game, which is just baffling to say. They just looked absolutely awful on Monday night. Duke out of all teams, just looked more physical, more faster, just better than Clemson, a team that has been in the playoff what seems like the past 10 years, even though they didn't make it last year. You still know what I mean. I really don't know if this is a sign of things to come for Clemson, because if it is, it is going to get in trouble very fast for Dabo Swinney. Very, very fast. Just looking at the stat here. With the loss last night, Dabo Swinney is now 40-23 without Brent Venables as his defensive coordinator. Brent Venables he was the defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach at Oklahoma. He was there for their basically title runs. With Brent Venables as his defensive coordinator, Dabo Swinney's record as a head coach is 121-17. To say just the defense is the problem here, I mean, that is one of the problems with the offense just as much as too. They brought in Garrett Riley, the TCU offensive coordinator. They couldn't get anything going last night. Turnovers were a huge, gigantic problem for them. And yeah, I really don't know where Clemson go from here. This is going to be a little bit of a tougher schedule this year. But, I mean, yeah, that was a very tough loss for them last night. Another loser, LSU. That was a very rough performance against Florida State on Sunday night. A lot of people expected something out of LSU this year. I did, but I didn't. I mean, they're still in the SEC West. I expected them to lose 3 games. I don't know if I expected them to lose this game, though. So, them losing that bad to Florida State, hopefully it's not a trend for this season, because it's always good to see LSU successful. But that was just an absolute beatdown by Florida State. And Florida State just put on an absolutely insane performance on Sunday night. I mean, the last loser, if I have to do 3 winners, I have to do 3 losers. I do hate to go here, but the Ohio State offense. Yes, they got the win against Indiana on the road. It was 27-7 or something like that. You have one of the greatest wide receiver rooms that has ever been seen in college football, and just almost looked non-existent on Saturday. Yes, I know you have a brand new starting quarterback. You got to work into things. I think this weekend against Youngstown State's going to help, but it almost looked like they weren't completely prepared for Indiana, and that does kind of worry me. We'll see how that develops during the year. I'm sure Ryan Day can get it turned around, but I mean that was rough to watch. So given that, do want to take a look at the AP poll. AP poll came out this afternoon. I thought there were some interesting things here, and with this I can talk about each team as we go down. So Georgia remained the top spot at 1 after their win over Tennessee Martin. I mean, you're not going to get anything out of that game. It's Tennessee Martin. I thought they looked good. They look like a national title contender again. But again, they were playing UT Martin. So it's going to be a few weeks until we figure that out. Michigan stays at 2. They had a win against East Carolina. It was convincing enough-ish. I mean, they shut down East Carolina. East Carolina kicks a sad field goal with like 4 seconds left to avoid the shutout. But I don't know about this Michigan team. I don't think you can let J.J. McCarthy throw the ball 30-plus times a game. I think that's setting you up for disaster. You have 2 of the best running backs in the nation, and if you're making JJ throw it 30 times, I think that's questionable, to say the least. So I don't know where it's all going to be weird for Michigan, basically up until probably Penn State, because everything else is not good teams. So moving up 1 position to number 3 is Alabama. I already talked about Jalen Milroe, his very good performance against Middle Tennessee State. It's going to be interesting this weekend. Very important game for Alabama. They play at home against Texas. It's going to be interesting to see, Milroe in his first big game as an Alabama quarterback, first big game in Tuscaloosa. That place is going to be absolutely rocking. Can't wait to see that. I am worried for both sides, because I think both sides have big weaknesses that can easily be exploited. But hopefully it ends up being quite a good game. Moving up 4 spots to number 4 is Florida State. We kind of talked about their performance against LSU, that 45-24 victory, which that scoreline doesn't really tell the story. Florida State dominated that game start to finish. Michigan State transfer Keon Coleman goes off for 3 touchdowns. Jordan Travis, I think, is going to be a really good quarterback this year. This Florida State team, after week one, looks very good. They've stuck by Mike Norvell. I think he's finally got this turned around, and it should be quite interesting to watch their season, because right now, I don't see another loss on their schedule right now. And, of course, this is college football. That can change very quickly. But as of now, I don't see another loss on their schedule. They could be headed into the playoff 13-0. Dropping 2 spots is Ohio State. We kind of talked about that, because the offense, you just got to utilize those wide receivers better. So that's my big proponent for this Ohio State team. USC stays at 6 after a dominating performance against Nevada. Nothing really to call home about with that one. Penn State stays at 7 after a very good performance against West Virginia at home. I'm still not expecting them to win this division. They probably still end up finishing 3rd, because they're probably going to lose to Ohio State and Michigan, but obviously crazier things have happened. I still think they're the third best team in the Big Ten, but because of the divisions, they are the third best team in the Big Ten East. So Washington moves up 2 spots to number 8 after their dismantling of Boise State. We kind of already talked about that one. Tennessee moves up 3 spots to number 9 after their beatdown of Virginia, which I don't think that's really fair because I don't think Virginia's that good of a team. So I don't think Tennessee deserved to move up that much because of that, beating up on a team like Virginia. But I'm not a pollster, so Notre Dame moves up 3 spots to 10. They played Tennessee State, so I don't know why they are moving up so many spots. Honestly, I think there's other teams that are better than Notre Dame right now, but Notre Dame's 2-0, so they just got to beat who's in front of them. Staying at 11 is Texas. They got their win over Rice. One of the teams I think should be in the top 10 over Tennessee and Notre Dame is Utah. An absolutely outstanding performance against Florida on Thursday night. They 100%, I believe, deserve to be in the top 10. They put on an outstanding performance against Florida, like I said. Now this kind of falling into Tennessee scenario where I don't think this Florida team's that good, so it's understandable why they're at 12, but I think coming into the season they were underrated. I think they should have been at 12 to start the season and move up from there. Same with the team at 13. I think they are a top 10 team right now. Yes, it was Portland State, but still you put up 81 points against Portland State. Oregon, I think that this is probably where they should have started the season and they should have moved up accordingly. I don't think that they should have been what that would be 15th to start the season. I don't think that they should be that low. I think they're a top 10 team. Like I said, this Pac-12 is going to be a gauntlet. If somebody can get out of it with one loss, they will be a dangerous playoff team. I can guarantee you that. LSU falls 9 spots to 14. No real surprise there. I didn't expect them to drop them out of the top 15. I thought 15 was the lowest they could go, and they end up at 14. Kansas State's at 15. I believe they played Missouri State, so nothing. You can't take away anything from those games. Oregon State moves up 2 spots to 16. They had that dismantling of San Jose State in San Jose on Sunday. We already talked about that one. North Carolina gets the win in the Duke's Mayo Classic against South Carolina. So they move up 4 spots to 17 in the AP poll. Even though they won this game, I'm still not convinced by them. They had a very good performance. They didn't have a great performance, personally, to me. So I'm still very worried about this team. I think they end up being an 8-4 team and just being a disappointment, I guess, for the season that they hyped up. Moving up 2 spots to 18 is Oklahoma. They dismantled all those adjectives. They did that to Arkansas State, 73-0. Butch Jones was crying on the sidelines, basically watching his team getting absolutely dismantled by Oklahoma. So, yeah, I don't think the Oklahoma team's going to be that good throughout the season. I just don't think Arkansas State's that good either. So it's a tale of two things right there. Think it's going to even out. I think Oklahoma will probably end up being around a top 20 team this year. I don't think that they'll be competing for the Big 12, but I don't think they'll be 6-6 like they were last year. Wisconsin stay at 19 after a somewhat unconvincing win against Buffalo. They could have played better, but they could have played a lot worse. Ole Miss move up 2 spots to 20 after their defeat of Mercer. Again, you can't take anything away from these FBS, FCS games. So, yeah. Duke, a team that I thought would be higher in the standings after their beatdown of Clemson, but they find themselves at 21 in this poll. Colorado, once again, a team that I just figured would be higher because that's what the media likes to do. They like to overrank things after week 1. Colorado checks in at 22 this week after their win of TCU. Now, I said I'd get to this. I still don't think Colorado is a top 25 team in college football right now. Yes, that win against TCU was impressive. TCU lost all their players from the college football playoff last year. A lot of them were seniors. They've moved on. This isn't the same TCU team that played last year. I don't even think they should have been ranked to start the season. I think they were ranked because they made the national title. And yes, they got dismantled there. But I don't think that TCU is going to be that good of a team this year. They'll probably be right around 7-5 or 6-6. And I think Colorado is probably just around that same range. I mean, Colorado's got a very tough schedule ahead. This week they have Nebraska. I know people are very, very high on Colorado right now going up against Nebraska. The amount of people that are on Colorado right now make me want to lean Nebraska just because something's got to even out here. Yes, Nebraska had a terrible game against Minnesota, but that's the kind of football they want to play. If that Nebraska defense can slow down Colorado, then I think Nebraska can win that game. We'll get into this when we do predictions on Thursday. But yeah, I think Colorado is still not a top 25 team yet, but I think if they can pull off a few more surprise wins, I think they can get there. At 23 is Texas A&M. They got the win against New Mexico. Bobby Petrino's first game as offensive coordinator looked pretty good on offense, so maybe this year Texas A&M doesn't finish 8-4. So who knows? 24 Tulane. They had a pretty good performance against South Alabama. They got the 37-17 victory. And given that I think South Alabama is going to be a really good team this year, I think that only bodes more for Tulane on how good that they might actually be this year. So should be interesting to see how Tulane plays out this rest of the season. And then falling to 25, which I don't even think they should have been ranked, that is Clemson. They fall 16 spots after that loss to Duke. The others receiving votes were Iowa, UCLA, Arkansas, TCU, Kentucky, Pitt, Mississippi State, Miami, Florida, NC State, Auburn, Troy, Fresno State, Minnesota, Wyoming, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Louisville, Washington State, Illinois, Houston, UCF, James Madison. We did talk about Texas State. I did want to mention that Wyoming game played against Texas Tech in Laramie. What a game that was. 2 overtimes. Texas Tech they fall in overtime, I should say. It was Wyoming that pulled off the victory in double overtime. And then people are like, well, why are we sending P5 teams to G5 schools? It's only, a setup and they're going to lose. No, that's what makes college football fun. If we don't have that, then this is the NFL. And that's the 100% the truth. And yes, we are deviating that way now. We're headed more towards a minor league system for the NFL. But as of now, that kind of stuff is that's what makes college football. So very impressed by what Wyoming did this weekend at home against Texas Tech. And it doesn't get easier for Texas Tech. They have Oregon coming to Lubbock this weekend, and that should be quite interesting. So given that is going to be it for Pigskin Perspectives this evening. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you just stumble across it, like, subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll do that NFL preview. We'll do an NFL Week 1 preview because those are two different things. One's a season prediction and one's previewing Week 1. And then we'll do a Week 2 college football preview. There's quite a lot of interesting games, so make sure you tune in for that. And we will see you once again for another episode of Pigskin Perspectives on Thursday.